Hello traders, Day Trader Matt here with a businesswithtrading.com doing a trading strategy recap for the 3rd of February, Tuesday, and today was another really good day. We didn't make as much as we made yesterday, but if you've been trading for as long as I have, the money is really secondary. And I know that probably sounds counterintuitive to a lot of you out there. A lot of people come into the industry, they chase the latest fad. You know, uh, Maybe some people might go towards market profile. I've been getting some questions about that lately. In my opinion, it's lacking a little bit, but that's not what this video is going to be about. Some people go to the latest trading software. Blah blah trading guru in quotes. So I'm doing quotes with my hands, but you can't see that because they're not really gurus. They're just people selling stuff. They have this software that's supposed to be really good, or a new trading style because the market's different today than it was last year. And it's bullshit. If you can trade one market, you can trade any market, unless you're just not a good trader. Or, some people like to develop new products every single 6 months or a year or something. That scares me a little bit. Because I'm a firm believer. If you can trade one market, you can trade any market. I don't care who you are or, what you've done. There are people who trade that can't even spell that well. They have a difficult time with 5 syllable words, 4 syllable words, some 3 syllable words. You have some traders out there that are not that good at math. They have a difficult time sometimes. You don't have to be a Harvard PhD to trade the markets. And in actuality, that would actually be a hindrance if you were a Harvard PhD. It would be a little bit more difficult to grasp the market, because you have a lot of extra baggage. You know, my approach to the market is very simple. You know, come in, you trade. Every single market is going to be slightly different. Every single trading day is going to be slightly different. You know, but your trading style should be able to adapt to all of that. If you can trade one market, you can trade any market. You're going to be a little bit better at the market you specialize in, but you should be able to trade anything. And that's what I do every day. That's what I coach people with. That's what I, train in my training courses and where I work with people one on one. That's basically what I do. I give people the way I do it. And there's no hidden software to keep people with me, and you have to pay me a certain amount of money to get this, and it's not none of that. You get taught what I do. I was once a new trader, and I know how it was. But anyway, I digress a little bit. I felt like talking about that a little bit. There are some people out there that release something every 6 months, and it just annoys the shit out of me. It really, really does. And it's not because I want to do that, because I don't really care. I trade, I teach trading. If you like it, great. If not, it is what it is. Not everybody's gonna like it, and I'm cool with that. I'm okay with that, because I trade. That's how I make my money, as I trade. The website is here for me to relay information and to help others. You know, Maybe we don't click. That's fine. Maybe you don't want me to help. That's fine. You know, but anyway, to each their own. I just felt like talking about that a little bit, just because it's on my mind. It's front and center, and it's there. But I am having a promotion that's coming out that I'm going to go ahead and disclose now. But it'll be good for at least all of February. It might go a little bit longer, but at least till February. And that is anybody who takes after the trial's over, you take it, a 1 year subscription to any trading service, you will get the accompanying trading course with it, which is $1,295. That's the trading course. So anybody who takes a 1 year subscription to any trading service, you'll get it. Some of them I don't think even have 1 year on the website, so you have to email me for details. But you will get that course, which I think is a phenomenal value. I would have loved to have something like that. Because it is years and years and years of my experience and what I do and how I trade now. Because I continuously update it with new examples. Once you get far enough in trading, you can't really change your style. You can tweak your risk management and stuff like that. But once it gets to a certain point, that's pretty much what you're changing your risk management and money management, and the setups you can't really tweak that much because they're there. So that's pretty much where they're at. So I just wanted to put that out there. But anyway, let's get into what we did today. So I know that's why all you guys watch these videos. Today we have 3 trades and pulled 7 points out. So it's a good day. It's a good day. Our first trade was right over here. It was a very quick trade. We got long at 9.5, and we got out at 0 quarters. So we actually got out fairly quickly. We got in. I think this bar probably came up and came back down and then went up. That's most likely what it did. But anyway, we got out, very quick trade, and we ended up getting long again at, okay, yeah, I think that is what happened. We got long, market came up and then came back down. We did get long down here at 8.5, and we were actually able to hold that all the way up here. So our second trade we held much longer than that, and then we just pretty much watched the market chop around a little bit, and we got long again over here, 9.25 to be exact, so a little higher up, like right here, and we were able to ride that up and take profits up here. Market came up a little more, then it started to sell off, and we pretty much just watched things. I was wanting to get long a little lower than price actually came down to, and but it is what it is. I'm not a person who forces trades. I'm very low key. In the trading room, I don't get excited about the wins. I don't get excited about the losses, because trading's trading. We want to love trading. I have a passion for it. That's why I do it. But I don't get excited over 3 points here, 7 points there. Because I know that the next mistake is around the corner. And trading is, if you have a nice, successful trade, you celebrate it for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then you continue trading. Your focus is taken off of trading a little bit. I'm a fan of not necessarily like his music per se, but the lyrics. As Kenny Rogers, he was a poker player. He was one of those guys. He was he tried to get started as a pop singer, like I don't know what you would call the genre, but something like that. And then he changed over to country because he realized, I can make it in country. The other genre, it's going to be more difficult. And that's what he did. But his lyrics I really, really like. Because the song The Gambler, maybe you guys have heard of it. Maybe you guys like it, maybe you guys don't. It doesn't really matter. What matters is he talks about gambling. Never count your cards at the table. There's always time to walk away when the dealing's done. Stuff like that. He always talks about things that are really important. And trading is that way. Don't count your chips when you're sitting at the table. That was actually the lyric. I think I butchered it. So don't count your chips when you're sitting at the table. And it's like when you're trading, don't add up your P&L while you're trading, because that's a hindrance. Why would you do that? Your score is counted after the game is over, whereas in football, the score goes as the game goes. In trading, you don't count it until the game's over. Which I guess we would relate that to tennis, game, set, match. The match is never over. Only games and sets. And that's what we strive for. We strive for that consistency and that progression, so that way we can make things happen. That's what trading is all about. So let's talk about a trade today. I think it's interesting. It's Coco. I sent out a video yesterday to the swing trading group, and I talked about getting long Coco right here. I didn't set a target. I woke up. The market came up. It was chopping around. I said, let's place our stops here, and if the market goes higher, we'll look to take a little bit of profit. If not, then we have our stops here. Well, it ended up chopping around and stopping us out. It is what it is. So we got out, market came back down. Now it's right around here, closed right at 2,700, which is where we ended up getting out when the market turned over. That's one of those trades that, we got in. It was a nice move. I should have set a higher target. It is what it is. But, we still made profit on it. And that's one of the things that, I definitely look at as interesting. We were able to make 12 points, risking 8 points. So we were risking 8. We were able to end up with 12. Not the best R&R, but it was decent. It was decent. And let's talk about our oil trade, because that is actually quite interesting. We had our stop down here, and I put out this last night, actually. Yeah, last night I said, let's go ahead and take our oil profits here if price hits it. So we had in a target. Oil came up, took out our target, and then interestingly enough, today it just took off. It took off on some data, some news. So I'm okay with that. But I wanted to show it because it's interesting. I always talk about I'm not a top ticker, bottom ticker type of person. I like to take money off the table. I like to get a good R to R. I like to get multiples reward to what I'm risking on a trade. And that's what a good trader does. A good trader always looks for a multiple reward to their risk. And I'm not saying go for 16 times your risk just because it's a very good R to R. It has to be logical and sound in your trading plan and in your trading analysis in that particular setup. But that's what I like to do. I showed those two trades. The Coco trade is actually interesting because it came back down. I think it was like, if you're looking at two contracts, we made 240 versus 160 risk, something like that. So not really that good. And that's why I wanted to show it. Oil kept going. If we would have just trailed our stop, we would have, made more money. But that's not what it's all about. It's not about, money. Money is definitely secondary. If you trade solely for money, you're probably not going to do that great. And when I first got into trading, I heard that. Well, not when I first got into trading. After I was a decent trader, I heard that. Because when I got into trading, there wasn't really that many people out there talking about trading. Um, you had a few people, but not very many, and I've never really been a proponent of the trading education system. I got into it just because I had a few friends that were traders, and you know, I was, we were a group, and I ended up teaching them what I knew, and then the group kind of grew, and then I kind of got coerced from them into starting an education business, and it's just been phenomenal. It's been like better than I ever thought. Initially what I was thinking, it's way better than anything I initially thought, um, which is awesome. And trading is that same way. The reason you get into trading and the reason you're in trading 10 years later are going to be different reasons. Just because we grow as people. The reason that you did something when you were 3 is different from why you do that at 20. Let's say, for example, when you were 3, you played with technology. You took apart a TV remote. When you're 20, you're interested in technology, and instead of just taking apart a TV remote for fun, you're taking apart stuff and putting it back together to learn. That would be a good example. And, trading's that same way. So, anyway, hopefully you got something out of the video, something out of what I was talking about, made sense to you. You can always leave comments below the video. You can also email me if you wish, support@abusinesswithtrading.com. Remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question, only the one not asked. So thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here in the markets. Thank you.